In this video, I'm going to go ahead and do some of the continuation of some of the skinning that had started in the last video. Whereas I had mentioned before, the component editor that I had pulled up out of the toolbar here, that I zeroed out the weights of the root motion, or for the root bone, that component editor is going to be found under Window, General Editors, and it's going to be the first one up here. So when you open that up, when it opens up in a minute here, there it goes. It will bring up your blended shape deformers, weight deformer, and everything else, but it works better once you have specific vertices selected. And my radial comes up here. So if I select these verts up at the top of the hat, and then I bring up my component editor, remember again you can go to Window, General Editors, and Component Editor. You can hold down Control, Shift, and click to make a new icon on your shelf, but I'm going to go to my icon that I made and go to your smooth skins. Here it'll point out all the vertices in which you have selected, and from up here it'll tell you what bones are influencing what. So like I have the top of this hat selected, as far as I know I do. Let me just select one vert and then I'm just going to grow it from there. And I already know off the top of my head that I already want to have this hat being controlled by only your head. No pun intended, but that's what needs to happen. So I don't know why I have jaw influences or clavicle influences. Like all these other influences I don't need. I just want 100% on the head. The best way to go about doing that is, because I know, let me locate the head. Here's the head. Best way to do it, since you want to remove all the other influences for this hat, you can just click on one of these boxes, scroll all the way down to the bottom of that column, hold down Control and Shift, and then click at the last box for that vertex, and then just type 1, and everything else should go away. What that does is it removes all their influences that influence all these vertices for the top of that head. So now if I go in and I select, let me go back to object mode here, so let me right click on the object mode. Let me just click on that joint. Now if I start moving this joint around, remember how it was moving the entire face and all the hair? Now if I move this, that hat is no longer affected. So that's a way you can do, like, you can do a lot of hard number crunch on a lot of vertices where it's 0 or 1 influence. You don't want influences that are, say, like there's a vert in the middle of this chest that's being somehow influenced by a finger. You can open up whatever areas of the vertices are being affected through your component editor and just find that finger, and just the same way you did the head, just go down that list and just go down to 0 and just completely eliminate that finger from ever influencing any of those areas. So that's a little bit rundown on the component editor. For the rest of the skinning on this, it's pretty straightforward. I do like to use a lot of ROM. I'm going to skin a little bit of this character. I think what I'm going to do is I'll do the fingers because they show a lot of information when using the range of motion tool. I did some of the arm earlier on another video, but my computer was starting to slow down quite a bit. So for what I want to do here, I want to make sure I have no other information still saved. So like right now I got information saved that I don't need. So let me go ahead and right click, clear all range of motion keys on the ROM button. Let me reselect my character, and I want to go back to painting again for painting weights. And from here I want to go ahead and locate my fingers. So if I go down, I found the left of the arm, keep on scrolling, and there's my hand. That influences everything in this area. And what I want to do is I want to go ahead and assign some range of motion keys for all these fingers. Now, the best way I would go about doing that, I could do individual ones to be precise. So I think what I'll do is I'll just start off with the index finger. Better yet, let's do it with the thumb. So from the hand, we have our index finger. Let's find that thumb. There's our thumb. It's all 3, and I want to solve each individual one. Well, you know what, let's not solve each individual one, because if you solve individual ones, it'll influence it left, right, up, down. It'll go in directions that fingers usually just do not move. I'll solve as one item since we're testing out the flexibility of this digit anyhow. So there's a rotate, there's an up, down, and then there's the in and out. Now, if I had done that for every single bone, it would have gone through every single bone and assigned keys to the range of motion to each one. I didn't really need that. It just would have looked just a little too crazy, and it's just not what I'm trying to do. Let me go ahead and select this bone of the thumb and push F to frame it. Since now I'm going to be focusing on skinning in this area, so I'm going to go back to the mesh, select. Let me go ahead and close that window. Like the paint tools. What I want to do is I want to bring up the thumb, or the ring, thumb. And what I want to do is, there's a way to collapse this. I'm trying to remember what it is. Well, at this time I'm not going to worry too much about it. Let's just paint. Since we know what digits we're needing to work with, we already have a location of where they are. So I'm going to bring this. I'm going to bring my brush size down. So by holding B and just clicking on that, it will shrink the brush size down. And I'm using a stylus at this point. I'm not using my mouse anymore. And what this allows me to do is it allows me to have a little more control over how much painting influence I'm doing. When you use a mouse, it's either it's like 100% or it's none. And I hold down Shift to go back and forth between adding and smoothing, so I don't have to come over here and click smooth and then smooth out, click add, then go back to adding. So in here, I'm just going to keep on adding. I'll add a good amount of numbers to the area I think the bone's going to influence the most. I know it's definitely going to influence it up here. And then what I'll do, because I want this nice gradual gradient to come from this thumb to the hand, I'll come in and I'll just start smoothing. If I'm not getting enough smoothing power, I can always turn up my value. I'll turn this up to about, let me go and delete all that, about 0.8. And for the opacity, I think I'll keep that around, let's go about half. So I'll come in and I will go ahead and start smoothing this. And like I said too, it's also Maya's picking up like how much pressure is being put down on this on the stylus pad that I'm using. I'm using a Bamboo Create. It's not a high-end stylus, but it definitely gets the job done. And I've enjoyed it. It's definitely worked just fine for me. It's not too expensive of a stylus pad to get and use, but definitely gets the work done. Now I'm getting a little too much influence within this area. So I think I'm going to bring my value down and my opacity down. So my opacity I'll put at 2.5 or 0.25. And my value I'll bring that down to definitely about half. So I have a little bit less influence kicking up into these areas and overriding whatever I put in there earlier. Now for this thumb, it's a little out of whack. If I ran into an issue like this, I could definitely go back and I could go into skeleton placement. So I'll click there. It'll tell you here that depending on the magnitude in which you change the position of your bones, it might throw out skin information, or it might not be able to line up correctly again. But for this, I need to get that thumb moved because it's not going to rotate in the right direction. The tool's just going to feel like it's kind of out of place. So, and if it crashes, I'm going to have to save this video and then I'll come back and get it to work again first. Alright, cool. It did not crash, hopefully. Come on, Maya, work with me. There we go. Alright. So I brought that proxy geometry back up just like before. We're going to go ahead and turn that off because we don't need to see it. We're not working with proxy geometry. And there's that thumb. Let me go ahead and turn on the transparency sorting. I need to get that thumb moved up a bit because it's already hanging near the bottom of that bone. So using this one here, I'm going to try and rotate it out so I can get it lined up. Oh, my discrete rotate is on, so I'm going to go ahead and disable that. Double click on the manipulator tool, bring up the tool settings, and I want to turn off discrete. So go ahead and close that window since I don't need it. Go ahead and set this over to the side. I'll go ahead and rotate that back out again. And I want to probably move this up just a bit, up in the direction of X. So if I go to manipulator tool, I want to change my manipulator tool to the actual object itself. So I'm moving in its local space. So right now it's set to world, which I don't want. I want to have it on local. So go to local. Now we're moving the joint in the direction it's facing. Now same thing with this. Let's go ahead and move that about the middle of the thumb. And alright, the thumb should be good now. Okay. Check the rest of these fingers. You got any little adjustments you need to make? That'd be a good time to do it. Catching it now early is better than catching it way later. Okay, since we have the thumb fixed, let's go ahead and go back to deformation setup. Let's go ahead and do update. And we're not going to update our rig pose because we don't need to. So ignore. We don't need to way to a proxy mesh, so I'll push no. Still moving this model up into the rig pose. And there we go. Our skin weight was saved out, so we can go ahead and import that in again. Hopefully it does. It takes just a second for it to reapply all the information we had done earlier. And again, it brought that proxy geometry back in. It should get rid of it. Now, if I knew the pause button, I definitely would pause it. But at this time too, you can also make sure you have all the other information and bones double checked to make sure they're moving they need to go. Alright, cool. So our bone is not hanging down so much lower than it was. I think that rigging option probably would have fixed it. But from here, this is definitely workable. It's better than it was. So I'll go ahead and go back, skinning, and go back down to that thumb again. Saved out all of our ROMs. Did not. So we'll just reapply those ROMs. Our range of motions. Go back down to that thumb. Solve as one item and place those keyframes. That was the right side. I apologize. It's a wrong end. So let me go here. Delete those because I don't need that side to be moving. And come up to the thumb left. Solve as one item. Generate. And we already saw that thumb is influencing over here, which we do not want. You can go through your component editor, select all those verts and get rid of all influence the thumb might have in that area. Or you can just manually get rid of it through brushing it out. That thumb's influencing a lot more than it did before, but that's what this skinning phase is all about. There's a couple extra pointers I wanted to bring up, so in the next video we'll have this character completely skinned out and ready to go into the rig creation process. Make sure you do save this often in case of any crashing. So we'll be right back.